Hello everyone and welcome to another animated look back. Disney's Robin Hood. What can I say about this movie? There is no other movie like it. Well, okay, there are other scenes in other animated movies that look exactly like this film, but that isn't what I'm talking about. Most Disney movies you can put into certain categories. You know, you have the princess movies, or the heartwarming movies that try to make you cry at least a couple of times, and then you have the movies that follow mice as they make their way through the world, but they're doing huge, amazing things even though they're tiny mice. And then there are the others, you know, the outliers, the Pinocchio, the Fantasia, that don't quite fit into any one of those categories. And that is Robin Hood, a movie that is part buddy movie, part hero movie, part musical, part child fantasy, part too childish, part too cartoony, and partly the inspiration for furries, probably. Like, I don't think I'm going to surprise anybody if I say I don't think Robin Hood is one of the biggest masterpieces of animation history that we've ever put together. But on the other hand, I don't feel like anyone really dislikes this movie either, and that's going to make it tough to review. So hey, let's get into it and see where it lands. This is my review of Disney's Robin Hood. This story is a basic Robin Hood story. Robin Hood is a fox who steals from the rich and gives to the poor. He lives in Sherwood Forest with his friend Little John. He is constantly pursued by the Sheriff of Nottingham, who works for Prince John, a weak little king who loves money and will tax the heck out of his citizens to get more of it. I will say, when I was a kid, I used to think that taxes were evil because of this film, you know, because the king was just like, tax them, and I'm just like, see, you know what? Taxes are just a way to oppress these poor people, man. Taxes are straight up evil. That's what I thought as a kid. It wasn't until I became an adult where I realized that that was actually true. Nah, I'm just kidding, you know, I love my free healthcare. Thank you, taxes. Anyway, the king tries to take out Robin Hood any way he can, including setting up traps for him, but he seems to outfox him at every turn. He even has time for love, as there's an old flame in his life, Maid Marian, who both of them love each other and hope to one day to be reunited with each other. The thing that is weird with Robin Hood is that it's not really structured like any animated film is, or basically like anybody would recommend you structure an animated movie. It doesn't really take time to develop the love story, it just shows both characters in love, talking with other people about the characters that they're in love with. The hero takes on the bad guy with basically Looney Tunes logic, including a scene where they dress and drag. It includes characters and then does nothing with them. The villain is just so pathetic because he's constantly sucking his thumb and asking for his money, and yet I'm surprised about how little I really care about all that. I mean, when you try to look at this movie on its structure, you know, if you compared it to any other regular movie, it's a complete mess. The only parts of the film that feel consistent and flow naturally are the archery scene and the climax of the movie. Everywhere else, it feels like it's just disjointed and put scenes in at random places. When you're a kid, everything seems to make sense for you, and it's not like the movie is incomprehensible, it just doesn't flow. But as a kid, you know who the good guys are, you know who the bad guys are, and you root for them along the way, so it's not really that big of a deal when you're younger. I know this is really confusing, but let me just get into what I think one of the biggest flaws of the entire movie is, and that's the animation.
On the Sherwood Forest!
Because this film was not given a lot to work with. I mean, anyone who knows anything about animation knows that this film ripped off scenes from The Jungle Book, The Aristocrats, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, so they didn't have to spend too much more money on animated new scenes. And it's mostly all in the song The Phony King of England. And it's funny, because even as a kid, I always felt there was something that was off about this song. You know, it was like, I don't know what it is. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt a little disjointed to me. Hey, even if I didn't even know what disjointed meant back then, but I felt it was a little off, and now I get it because none of the styles match, you know, like, she goes from doing like a square dancing Snow White dance to like a jazz Aristocats dance, you know, it doesn't flow.
While he taxes us to pieces.
And that's not even talking about the many reshots they use in this one film. I mean, take a look at this scene with the rhinos charging. How many times do they use that? However, that doesn't mean all the animation sucks. There are some real standout moments. You know, the fight that breaks out after the archery scene happens. It's a super fast-paced and a lot of fun.
Hey, who's driving this flying umbrella?
It has a lot of standout moments. It'll leave you laughing and enjoying yourself. And then the climax of the film, I'll go into more detail later, but it's handled really well. The animation of it just keeps on ramping up, and the music builds and everything, and it relates it with a sense of tension as everything goes on. And that's interesting because there really wasn't a lot of tension throughout most of the film. You know, your character, Robin Hood in this film, feels a lot like Bugs Bunny. Like, nothing can actually happen to him. But in the last fight scene, you're worried for him, at least as a kid. However, even in the good scenes, there's some little hiccups. Like, you get this scene right here where they're loading everyone onto the back of this wagon, and you see the mother with her child. She's hanging onto her child, and yet seconds later...
Stop! My baby! Mama, wait for me!
I mean, we saw her in the carriage. We saw her there. She's right there. Did you push her? Like, what happened? I'm sure this scene was meant to have a moment where, like, the child drops her doll and then jumps off to save it, but for whatever reason, they didn't do that, and so it just looks like the mother just accidentally dropped her or something. So yeah, overall, the animation is inconsistent, and it isn't really all that great, because it's lazy, because they do rip off some other things, but I'd be amiss to say that it was terrible. I don't think that's necessarily, I would say, in parts it's lazy. Terrible, it's not terrible. Moving on, let's talk about the characters, and I want to start with the narrator of the pick. He is the Rooster, played by Roger Miller.
You know, there's been a heap of legends and tall tales about Robin Hood. All different, too. Well, we folks of the animal kingdom have our own version.
He has a fun mix, because he's telling the story, but at the same time, he's also taking part in the story. I remember as a kid, I was like, is he allowed to do that? He knows everything that's going to happen. He's the narrator. He can't actually take part in the story. That's cheating.
Yep, I'm in here, too. Nottingham was in deep trouble.
But since he was with the good guys, I didn't really care. But I like it. I enjoy it. It's a nice little twist, and it gets you thinking creatively about stories. And then Roger Miller's music, at first glance, it might feel like it doesn't fit. And that's probably because the original idea for this movie was to actually be a more modern take on it, taking place in the Wild West, which is why you can tell some of the voice actors have that southern twang to their voice. But at the end of the movie, I feel like it felt right at home, you know? After a little bit, I get used to it, and the music doesn't feel like it's disjointed at all. And I gotta say, after watching this film, if you are not whistling that main little tune, you either have no soul or you cannot whistle. But I also like some of the other songs too. Like, I like the Oda-laalie song at the very beginning. I just love how casual it is about Robin Hood and Little John running for their lives.
John running through the forest, jumping fences, dodging trees, and trying to get away. Contemplating nothing but escape and finally making it. Oda-laalie, golly, what a day.
I also like the song Not Nottingham. It's a quick little song, but I actually, I don't know, it's cute and it's a little sad, you know, like, sometimes the ups do the downs, but not here.
Can't you see the tears we're crying? Can't there be some happiness for me? Nottingham.
Incredible as he
Now the other song, The Phony King of England, as I said, I think it doesn't really work. Its lyrics all that great, it doesn't really flow, and the animation doesn't do it any favors with being how lazy it is. And that says nothing about the love song called Love. I tell you, I forgot. I keep on forgetting that there's a love song in this one. If you asked me to tell you, whistle it, give me a tune. What was the tune? I don't know. Sometimes I'm doubting that it was actually there. But both Roger Miller's character and his music, for the most part, I think fit into this movie very well. As a narrator, he's pretty fun, and as the songs, they're pretty good as well. I like Friar Tuck as well. He's always a lot of fun. He has that deep voice that's really nice and wholesome. I love how he always gets so upset with, more and more upset with the sheriff, and then it ends with him like, "Get out of my church!
Get out of my church! Ow! 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 Ow!
He's fun. He's like a little old man that's like, he's wholesome and he's kind, but you push him. You cross that line and he's gonna beat you down.
You want taxes? I'll give you taxes! Oh.
Next we have the Sheriff of Nottingham, played by Pat Bertram, who you might remember played Chief in The Old Fox and the Hound. You know, the dog that should have died. And I gotta say, I love the sheriff. Pat plays him perfectly because he's just such a jerk, but he's having such a great time being a jerk that you just can't help but like him. He's also creative in the ways how he collects taxes because he shows how alert and creative he is.
Let me give you a hand with that leg. Ups-a-daisy. Bingo. What they won't think of next.
He hears the coins shuffling around in the dog's cast and he's like, "Oh, let me help you up," in order to collect the taxes. He does the thing where he slams one coin into the beggar's cup. Well, it was Robin Hood, but he thinks he's a blind man, and so the other coins jump out. He's just one of those characters that you just like for how despicable he is.
That's the poor box!
It sure is, and I'll just take it for poor Prince John. Every little bit helps.
Ooh, you put that back.
And His Majesty also blesses you, little sister.
Now, one of the villains that could be perceived as annoying is Hiss and the Prince John himself. And I can see why. On the one hand, you got Prince John the entire movie, every time he doesn't get his way, going, "I'm not me," and he's really pathetic, and he's really lame, and you're just like, oh, come on, this guy's supposed to be a threat? His intimidation level is at 0. I've seen dandelions more terrifying than this lion.
Much to the sorrow of the Queen Mother.
Yeah, Mother. Mother always did like Richard best.
Your Highness, please don't do that.
I mean, let's just be honest. You just can't be intimidated by a guy who's just constantly talking about his mother. Oh shoot. Okay, maybe in special cases, but not when they're acting like this.
Mommy. I've got a dirty thumb.
But then again, that isn't really the point of Prince John. He's not the villain that you're meant to be intimidated by. He's the villain that, as a kid, you're meant to laugh at. To say, "Ha-ha, Robin Hood outsmarted you big idiot, na-na-na-na." And I will say, yeah, he's very dumb. And he is so dumb that he has the hippos in his army playing the drums. I mean, come on, the hippos are some of the most deadliest creatures in all of nature. Put them on the front line, you moron! He's so over the top and greedy, and we're meant to laugh and enjoy his suffering whenever he loses. And in that regard, he does that very well. I will say, however, this kind of makes him, it kind of makes the movie not one you want to revisit in, let's say, your teenage years. I don't know if this is the same for girls, but for guys, we don't want to be looking at baby stuff when we reach a certain age. And because of that, when you look back at Robin Hood and the villain's always like, it's not a movie that's going to draw you back into it. No, you have to wait till you get adulthood, and then you just don't care anymore what other people think. Now, that being said, I don't think Prince John and Hiss are worthless characters. I actually do laugh a lot of their scenes. I like Hiss being a kiss-arse who Prince John takes his fury out on, because this dynamic just has some pretty funny moments together with some good lines.
But the stork is really Robin Hood.
Robin Hood. Get out of that if you can.
Now, that doesn't make him one of Disney's best baddies. Oh yeah, put him up there with Jafar. No, not even close. But he's not a worthless villain. He's just not an intimidating one, but that's not really the point of it. I would say at least there's still something to enjoy with this character. Now, I want to talk about some of the other characters within the contents of the scenes they are in. For example, we got this young boy, Skippy the Rabbit, who wants to be like Robin Hood. Skippy and his friends actually take up a good chunk of the first half of the movie. I mean, we get to see where Robin Hood is giving Skippy a bow and arrow in his hat, and then, through them we're introduced to Maid Marian and Lady Cluck.
I, Prince John, challenge you to a duel. Hey, take that, and this.
Death the tyrant!
Now, both those scenes on their own are very good. We get to see how selfless Robin Hood is, and how clever he is, pretending to be an old blind man. And we see scenes with Lady Cluck and Maid Marian, and that's a lot of fun with them. They're having an intense game of badminton, and then them starting to play with the kids, pretending to be rescued by Robin Hood and fighting Prince John. That is just cute.
Yahoo! Now I gotcha!
Oh, merci. Oh, he got me. I'm dying. Oh.
Did it hurt you? Huh?
No.
But, do you realize that that's the last we see of the kids? I mean, sure, they show up in a couple of scenes, throughout the movie, like they're at the archery range.
Yay, Dad!
I don't know why, but that's one of my favorite moments in all of animations, is the yay, Dad. I don't know if it's because he's a turtle and how slow he says it. It just makes me laugh every single time. But my point is, they're in the movie, but they're in the background for the rest of the movie. They have a couple of quick moments, but none of them have any speaking parts for the rest of the film other than the little bunny girl getting saved by Robin Hood. And then Skippy at the end just saying, hey, I'm just gonna go with Robin Hood and Maid Marian because apparently I'm donating myself to be their babysitter.
Gee, Skippy, how come you're going? Well, Robin Hood's gonna have kids, so somebody's gotta keep their eye on things.
Now, the scenes, when they stand alone, they're fine, but it's just like, it makes me feel like, why did we even have Skippy and his friends in there in the first place? They weren't a big part of the climax. After the last half, after the first quarter of the movie, after that last scene, they had virtually no part in this film whatsoever. They're, I guess, used as a story device to introduce us to Maid Marian and Lady Cluck, but I don't feel like you necessarily needed them for that. It kind of just feels like you wanted a kid character in here so the kids could relate to someone, but you didn't actually do anything with it, so why should they relate to that one? They serve really no point in the story, and that's the thing that I noticed the most with Robin Hood, is that the scenes don't build all that much off of the scene that came before. I mean, look at the relationship with Maid Marian and Robin Hood. Her character is someone who is in love with Robin Hood and who wants to be with him one day.
Surely he must know how much I still love him. But of course, my dear. Believe me, someday soon, your Uncle King Richard will have an outlaw for an in-law.
I love her, Johnny.
Look, why don't you stop mooning and moping around? Just marry the girl.
Marry her? You don't just walk up to a girl, hand her a bouquet, and say, hey, remember me? We were kids together. Will you marry me?
Robin, this is a Disney movie. That is all you need to do. We spend no time building this up or even introducing them to each other or having scenes with them together. Her whole purpose is just to be with Robin Hood, and then he saves her or takes her away after the archery scene. They have their love song together, and then she's gone until the wedding scene. It's like your character's like, okay, you've served your purpose, now out you go! Out you go, Marion, we don't need you anymore until we have the wedding scene. In the big climax of the film, she has no part in it whatsoever. And look, I know this movie was made in a different time, but it kind of makes me feel like, well, we did the romance thing for the girls, now that she's out of the way, we don't need her anymore, all that girl stuff, yeah, who cares about that? We'll only throw her in once she gets married. And it kind of makes her a little bit more of a boring character, which I'm sad because I actually was really enjoying her and Lady Cluck in that scene with the badminton stuff going on. They were fun.
Oh, why, it's your turn to serve, Marion, dear. Are you ready, Lady Cluck? Oh, as your lady in waiting. I'm waiting. Oh.
But after that, all she is like, Robin Hood, Robin Hood, Robin Hood, and now I'm with Robin Hood, and now bye. Wedding scene! I honestly wish we got more of her and a lot more of Lady Cluck, because she is amazing. I mean, the fight scene with all the Prince John's men at the tournament, I feel like she takes out more men than Robin Hood does. But now I want to talk about the pair of Little John and Robin Hood, the main focus of the movie, because this was kind of made to be more of a buddy film. And I first want to talk about Little John, and as a kid, all I thought was that this was just Baloo acting in another movie.
Are robbing the rich to feed the poor.
Rob? That's a naughty word. We never rob. We just sort of borrow a bit from those who can afford it.
Borrow? Boy, are we in debt.
I mean, the voice actor is the same, the animation is the same, they just painted him brown. It's basically the exact same character, although, okay, there's a little bit of differences between Baloo and Little John. Little John is more of a buddy support character to Robin Hood. Here, you know, they banter, they have fun with the friendship, you know, where Baloo is more of just an aloof guy who wanted to lay back and do nothing.
Why, someday you'll be called a great hero.
A hero? Did you hear that, Johnny? We've just been pardoned.
Oh, that's a gas. We ain't even been arrested yet.
Part of me wishes we were able to have some of the other married men here because you could get really creative with what type of animals they were. That could have been a lot of fun, but I get that, you know, they don't have the time or budget to really do any of that. So getting Little John isn't a bad alternative. They pull off great schemes together, and you enjoy them pulling fast ones on the bad guys. Although I will say, I don't know what Robin Hood had to do to get Prince John out of his clothes. But actually, thinking about it, I don't want to know. You know, you can keep that secret to yourself, Disney. Lock that in the vault.
I've been robbed.
Now, when it comes to Robin Hood himself, I will say that he is a fun main character. His voice is very reminiscent of those 50s heroes, like, oh, good jolly old chum.
That sounds like another collection day for the poor, eh, Johnny boy?
Yeah. Sweet charity.
You know, the type of super confident, nothing goes wrong for him, even when they do, they don't. He pulls that off very well. Now, I would say that the problem with Robin Hood is basically the problem with every single character in this movie. He's fine. There's nothing really wrong with him. I don't really have any complaints or would do anything drastically different, but he's just fine. You know, the characters in this film, they're not annoying, they're not stupid, well, unless that's the point of the character, and then they do what they're supposed to do, and they do it fine. But nothing in this movie is better than fine. How are the fight scenes? They're fine. How are the love interests? It's fine. How are the side characters? It's fine. Everything in this movie is fine. I honestly have very few complaints about this movie, of stuff that annoyed me or pissed me off. But there's also not a whole lot I wanted to rant and rave about this movie. This movie took me forever to write this review because I was like, what do I put down? It's like, how is that character? Fine. How is that character? Fine. How's the animation? It's fine. Everything in this movie is just fine. There's no deep hidden meaning behind anything. There's not a lot really to do a deep dive into. Does it make it bad? No, it makes it fine. Fine. Now you might ask, is there anything in this movie that is better than fine? Well, for me, the highlights of this film are the archery scene and definitely the climax of the movie. The archery scene has just a bunch of fun moments, like with Little John pretending to be a duke, Robin Hood having to disguise himself as a bird, but then he gets discovered, and then after that it's just all-out madness. However, after that, we get a couple of songs that I don't really care for, and, you know, completely throwing away Maid Marian. And then, all of a sudden, all of the village of Nottingham is in jail. Like, all of them. And I have to ask the question, how did Robin Hood let it get this bad? I mean, we've seen him act fast and be like, oh, look, there's Prince John, let's rob him, and stuff like that. But all of a sudden, like, all of the townspeople are thrown in prison. What is Robin Hood doing? What a lovely morning.
Rob, where have you been?
Oh, well, hello, old friend. Good to see you.
Prince John has thrown all our friends into the prison.
Oh, why, that's terrible. We must work fast to free them.
Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for days.
Well, I was just spending time with Marian. You know how it is.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, what were you trying to say?
All of our friends are rotting in a cell right now, and you are just hanging out with Maid Marian?
Hey, cut me some slack. After all, she's a foxy lady.
No, she's a lady who is a fox. Gosh.
Well, okay, I'm sorry I wasn't here. It's not like anybody died.
They're hanging Friar Tuck at dawn!
Oh. That's not so good. Oda-laalie, oh golly, what a day this is.
Seriously, Rob, you gotta focus. Focus on the bare necessities right now. Come on, let's go.
For me, however, the best part of this story has to be the climax. First, because you got the vultures who are in there, and I just love his henchmen. These vultures blow the vultures from the Jungle Book out of the water. Or out of the air, I guess.
I got a feeling in my bones there's gonna be a jailbreak any minute.
Cram a neatly, Trigger. Point that pea shooter the other way.
Don't you worry none, Sheriff. The safety's on old Betsy.
I almost wish there was more of them in this film. And then the scene after that is eerily quiet, because not only are they making a daring breakout, but they're also robbing Prince John for all he is worth. Which makes it for a really fun climax. You're like, oh, are they going to get caught here? Is somebody going to see him here? It's like, you're on pins and needles. Although, I want to say, for me personally, if I was one of the animals that Robin Hood was breaking out, I might have a few questions about this heist thing that's also happening.
Robin Hood, you have come to save us. Oh, thank goodness. I am so grateful.
I just couldn't let you all rot in prison. We're all in this together. Now here, grab this.
Oh, this is so heavy. What is this? Oh.
Well, it's gold. I'm going up to Prince John's room to grab some more.
Wait, what?
We have to show him he can't just steal from decent people anymore.
I can't help you with a heist. I have a murder to look after.
Whoa, hold up there. Love the enthusiasm, but we're not here to kill anyone. Just grab the money.
Oh, I'm not talking about that. A murder is a group of crows. Anyway, my point is you're trying to free us and also rob Prince John at the same time.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Well, it kind of makes me feel that we're not the priority here. The only reason that you are breaking us out is because you don't have enough hands to carry out all the loot.
Wow. Just wow. I mean, I risked my neck. I didn't have to come save anyone. I didn't. I risked my neck to save your life. To save all of your lives. And this is how you repay me? Wow. Just...
I'm sorry. I know this wasn't easy for you. And I really do appreciate everything. We will help in any way we can.
Great. Now hold this, and I'll be back with more for your children. Bye!
Maybe I am thinking about the other type of murder now.
But anyways, when they are finally discovered, the action just starts to just go all nuts, and it keeps on ramping up bigger and bigger. Kind of reminds me when you're like doing a video game and you're in like a stealth mission and you think you're good, you're like, okay, just gotta do this one guard, and you fire and you miss, and then all of a sudden everybody knows where you are and you're just trying to run away and not die. It's actually the most intense the movie gets, as it seems no matter which way Robin turns, there is just more and more bad guys trying to kill him. And the music just does a great job building the action and going up and up and up, going more intense, and then Robin Hood jumps in the water, and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? You think he died, but he comes out, he's alive, and you're like, oh yeah, and then he makes it to the shore, and he goes away, and the movie's over. Oh, you wanted more. Well, what more could you want? This movie just says it. King Richard returns and threw his brother in prison and made everything right. Sure, Robin Hood didn't have anything to do with that, but what more could you want? Maybe a scene where the villain and the hero have a conflict with each other? Maybe a scene where, the villain is actually really intimidating and creepy? Maybe you have Maid Marian actually do something in the climax? If you think you could get that scene, you are dreaming. But you're probably dreaming of the deleted scene. Yeah.
My, it does look serious. Poor fellow. Shouldn't we put him out of his misery? A quick thrust of the sword.
Oh, very merciful, sire.
I fear the end is near.
Don't you come a step closer.
Nobody gives orders to King John.
One of my biggest problems with Robin Hood is the fact that the movie just ends by saying King Richard just comes back and makes everything right again. And that's basically it. In the original ending, we had Robin Hood get wounded after jumping from the tower, getting tracked down by Hiss and Prince John, who then threatens to stab him to death in front of Maid Marian. Who, in this scene, she's the only one standing in between Robin Hood and Prince John. She stands her ground. It gives her a good moment. And I will say why it's a little bit out of nowhere that in this scene King Richard just appears out of flippin' nowhere and he's able to have been standing there and hear about his brother's treachery from his brother's own lips. Sure, that's a little cliche. There's a problem with this ending too. It doesn't really wrap everything up as much as the movie does in the ending it has now. We see scenes like Hiss and John in jail and a few other scenes like that. They really wrap it up a little bit better. In the deleted ending, it's a little rushed. But I feel like if you blended them together, you could have gotten the perfect ending. Just to make it a little bit... Because that's the way it stands, Robin Hood doesn't do anything. Like, he steals from Prince John, but then King Richard comes up, and so it's like, well, besides maybe saving Friar Tuck's life, this whole heist was probably not necessary because you're going to give the money back to King Richard because he's the true king, so... it's kind of a little pointless. I feel like you could really have worked it to making this ending really work, and I feel like neither version that they have, either the deleted ending or the actual ending that they went with, I don't think neither one of them has a perfect version, and I think even combined it might not be perfect, but I think it would have felt more complete. It just feels odd that even though Robin Hood robs from Prince John and saves everybody and saves the day, it's just like, on an unrelated note, King Richard came back and did everything. So it's like, okay, you weren't really all that necessary then. But that doesn't ruin the movie or anything, it's just a flaw with the ending. The only thing I have left to point out, and I know I'm not the only one pointing to this, is that this film is probably in the same universe as Zootopia. So Zootopia is another movie that has animals that walk on 2 feet and act just like humans, and it feels like these two movies could be connected. Now, there are a couple of things that discourage that example. For example, in Zootopia, there are just mammals in that world. We don't see one reptile or one bird, where in this movie, we see both. But that doesn't completely discredit the theory. Maybe this word had a bird flu around the Dark Ages time that wiped them all out. Or maybe there are some in the world of Zootopia, we just didn't happen to see any. But I actually believe that this is probably actually not the first movie in this possible Zootopia timeline. No, I think Robin Hood is the second. What is the first one? The Lion King. Think about it. In The Lion King, not once do we see any human characters or even any evidence that humans were around. We don't see tire tracks. We don't see any parts of human civilization in that world at all. And we hear in Zootopia, the animals did used to crawl on 4 legs and walk around and were a little bit more animalistic in nature. You know, the regular predator-prey roles. I view The Lion King as the beginning, where they're trying to form a culture together and peace between the carnivores and the herbivores, and, you know, starting to go together. Then you have a few decades later after that, you have the Robin Hood, where now they've included clothing, and now they're walking on 2 legs, and they're going around like that, and now they've started to move more together as a culture. But who's still the king? Lions, that's right. Now you move over to Zootopia. Now Zootopia's a little bit different. They don't have kings anymore. It's more modern. But who's the mayor? Still a lion. They're still looking for that lion patriarchal. I'm just saying, it's the theory that works. Anyway, that's basically all I have to say about Robin Hood. This movie is fine. I don't have a single moment of it that I hate, but there isn't too much to stand out to make it a great one either. I'll say this, I'm at least glad that there's no way Disney can make a live-action version of this one. What? How? Well, in any case, I think Robin Hood is a fine movie that will keep your kids' attention, keep them entertained. There are some moments that will keep you coming back as an adult. I'd say this is nobody's favorite Disney movie, but every time I say that into one of these reviews, you get somebody in the comments saying, no, it's my favorite Disney movie. I was like, okay, good for you. I'm just saying, I'm going to say this, it's not going to be most people's favorite Disney movie. I would say 99% about people is not going to be their favorite. For me, I think that this movie, say it with me now, is fine. And that's why I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. If I was going to go on personal enjoyment of this film, I probably could even rate it like a 6, maybe even a 7 if I'm pushing it. You know, if I'm watching on a good day. But I think realistically as a movie itself, if I'm viewing it as a movie and reviewing it as a movie and being fair with what it is, the pacing problems, the way scenes don't lead into each other, the laziness with some of the animation, if I'm being honest, it earns its 5 out of 10 rating. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and be sure to join me on my next animated look back. What is it going to be? Well, that is going to be up to you. We're going to carry on with these votes. For the next one is going to be either Meet the Robinsons, that's carrying over from the last 3D animated movie vote, and the other choices are Mars Needs Moms and Happy Feet. Yeah, either way, it's going to make an interesting review, so make sure you go to the community page and vote for whichever one you want me to review. But in any case, I'm Lazy Dude, and see you on the next animated look back. See ya. Oda-laalie, oda-laalie, golly, what a day.
Oda-laalie, oda-laalie, golly, what a day. Oda-laalie, oda-laalie, golly, what a day.
This is my dog, Scout. She's new. She's a cute little dog. You love her?